that feeling that I used to have doing live TV or even just pre-recorded TV, it's very close to the surface for me when I start to think about. And thank you for joining this TikTok live. It's wonderful. If you want to be a part of the LinkedIn Live tomorrow night, Sydney time, I'll be in Melbourne. It'd be great to have you join it. But I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to share the feeling of, as a junior reporter, nervous. As I said before a minute ago, that the nervous anxiety, the energy that I kind of carried, that was all awkward energy. It was anxious energy. I didn't know about cortisol back then in the early 2000s. I just felt it though. I lived it. I breathed it. You know, the dry throat when you're just so nervous about what you're about to do. The tightness in your chest. At the very beginning, you know, I could hear my heart beating in my ears, and as I say, shortness of breath. And a fog in my head. Like you kind of, look, some of the time it was only a 15 or 20 second thing that I had to say to camera, but the amount of energy that went into memorizing it and then presenting it and putting inflection where I thought the inflection needed to go was just so fake. All of it was just really very fake, and people saw through it, and even friends and family, when they would, you know, talk about me, oh yeah, I saw you on the news, are you still doing that? Like it was just that kind of almost patronizing kind of vibe. I this was me for years as a sound recordist, as a junior green reporter, after going through those years as a sound recordist in the 90s, and then the opportunity with Channel 10. And I'll never forget the biggest opportunity that came my way was just terrifying. And it started, you remember, those of you old enough will remember that Australia didn't only have Qantas and Virgin years ago, it was Qantas and Ansett, the other airline. And Ansett had some huge problems back in the early 2000s. And you might be wondering, why do you remember that? Well, this was my big story, that really, in terms of all of the pressure points that I felt as a young reporter, where I learned what it is that people still feel every time they go on video today. I lived it and breathed it for years. Showing up every day to confront this really powerful set of physiological feelings and also thoughts, like a tightness in my mind that just constrained how I could show up. Had it for several years, but I would show up every day and confront it. And so that's what helps me to really relate to and resonate with people who are struggling to feel confident and comfortable on camera today. So Ansett was in trouble, and as a junior reporter, I'd been asked to go and cover a protest or a big meeting that the staff had at the Sydney airport one day. And I'll never forget going to bed early the night before, because I was the assistant reporter. You know, I was going to be out on location helping the senior reporters covering this very big, like it was the biggest story in Australia at the time. Front page of most papers. It was because it affected thousands of Australians in every part of the country. Ansett was a huge network, a huge employer, huge airline, number 2 airline behind Qantas. And anyway, this big event, I was up to cover it. And I'll never forget, I'd been told to get up early tomorrow. In fact, it was like, be at the airport at 5 a.m. or something like that. Not that the protest action was starting until much later, but you know, we want you there early so that you're on time, so that the senior reporter can, you know, get in a bit later and, you know, be refreshed so that they can do, you know, live TV at 5 o'clock, you know, looking a bit more refreshed than they would had they had to get up at 6 a.m. So I'm there kind of a bit of a dog's body, and that's okay. I'm a junior, right? This is where I'm starting out. And I'll never forget kind of arriving at the office to meet a camera operator to go to the airport. I might have been there at 5. And I got into the office, and I'll never forget, and none of us will. We will all remember where we were when this happened, right? Because when I got into the office, the first thing I was told was, oh mate, that story, we don't know if that's still happening. I'm like, what? What, the airline's been saved? What? And someone pointed to a newspaper, and it was at the front page of the Daily Telegraph. And I remember just seeing this fuzzy building on the front page and like an aeroplane flying to the side of it. And I'm like, what? And I hadn't seen the video, right? It had happened eight hours earlier, and I still hadn't seen the video. And I remember just looking at the front page of this newspaper trying to make sense of it. Oh, what? A plane flew into a building? That's weird. And like, oh, and lots of people have died. What? Oh, okay, right. And then somebody said, have you seen the video of it? I'm like, there's video of this? And then I looked up at the TV and they were focusing on one of the other locations, not in New York. And so it was just really hard to piece it all together. I'm like, hang on, this didn't just happen in New York. This happened in other places too. And I'm just slowly piecing it together. Like, it's early in the morning. I'm not fully awake yet, I'm focused on, the collapse of Ansett Airlines. And suddenly this story overseas in America is bigger than the collapse of our airline. Like, it just wasn't registering for me. And then I saw it. And I couldn't make sense of it, right? None of us could when we first saw that. Planes flying into the building. But what it meant was that I was going out to the airport as the reporter, not as the assistant, not as the dog's body. I was going out to do the story. And I'm like, hang on. This is Evan here. I'm not the senior reporter. This is Evan you're speaking to. I don't do these stories. Like, I've barely done many stories yet. Like, I've probably done, every week I might do one or two stories, not one a night. And they're not the lead big stories. I still hadn't registered, that it wasn't going to be in the first break even, because like I say, this Ansett was just the only story that people were really talking about up until now. And so I go out to the T2 terminal at Sydney Airport. I still remember exactly where I ended up standing that night. That was where Ansett was. It's now the Virgin terminal, of course, but I remember spending the day there, getting my head around how the world had changed, trying to understand what this all was. But here's where it really came into sharp focus for me at that point. And it was having to go live on television that night. And this is where it really got full on for me, because I wasn't ready at all. I knew that I wanted the opportunity. I knew it was big and I was going to take it, but I was not ready for this on any level. And I still remember them going, you sure you're okay for this live cross? Like, we really need you to do a live cross. I'm like, yeah, no, I get it. And so it was one of those situations where there was an edited story that I'd voiced, and that was okay. I did the voiceover a couple of times. It wasn't great the first time. They asked me to do it a few times, and how to get the inflection sounding a little bit less fake and just a little bit more real, just relax a bit more. And then they were like, okay, so the live cross, we're going to keep it short and simple. One question. Jessica Rowe will ask you the question. I'm like, Jessica Rowe, like, man. And we'll keep it short. Just say 2 or 3 sentences. It wasn't very long at all, friends. I wish somebody had a copy of it for me to see and share with you, because, man, it was full on. Those minutes before, when the cameraman asked me to stand in my spot and get ready. And look, honestly, whatever I said, it wasn't particularly profound. It wasn't very complicated. It was very straightforward. But remembering exactly this, it helps me to appreciate what other people feel about finding it tough to go on camera. It makes me appreciate what challenges there are for everybody else when they just have to show up and don't feel like being on video, and might be sort of stuck in that performative space, just trying to manage the stress that you're feeling, trying to keep your head clear, trying to keep it together, trying to not breathe too quickly or have your heart pound out of your chest, or trying to stop that fog from keep creeping through your brain. How to do all of this at the same time is sort of string a sentence together. And this is what helps me now as a coach. After being in mainstream media for 30 years now, coaching C-suite leaders all over the world. I love this, because I see changes within days and weeks of coaching people directly, giving them feedback, stepping them through a process, helping them to uncover what it is about them that feels really uncomfortable in this space. So here we are. It's 5 o'clock, and it was probably, in fact, 5:30, 5:20, after we covered the events for the first time at September 11. And I'm pretty sure Jessica Rose said words to the effect of, and now to news in Australia, and we, thousands of Ansett workers are yet to learn their fate as the woes continue to beset the airline. Administrators, government help, all sorts of things like this. She would have mentioned that. And we now cross live to Evan Patton, who's at Sydney Airport for us this evening at the Ansett terminal. And Evan, I'm pretty sure her question was, Evan, tell us what's the mood like there? I think they just left it at something as that simple, because can I tell you, friends, when she says my name is at Sydney Airport and I know that I'm on, if my throat was dry before then, I felt like there were razor blades in my throat. And all I can think about as my heart is pounding on my eardrums, I can feel the heat in my face. All I'm thinking about is, am I going to be able to get these words out? Like when I open my mouth, am I going to be fishbowling? Like, am I going to have anything to say? Are the words going to come out? Let's not talk about how sweaty my hands were, and probably my back. Like I was just a ball of nerves. The camera operator, I think I was more frozen than shuffling my feet around. I think that was more what I did. Just stayed dead still. But I just didn't move at all. Like you talk about a deer in the headlights, like it was. But I'll never forget. I spoke, and words came out, and I don't think it was terrible. Like it wasn't great, it wasn't good, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And it was enough. It was good enough for me to not give up then and there. It was good enough for me to go, all right, I am going to try this again. And I came back, and I didn't do the Ansett story again, and I think I was just working on second, third distant stories. The Australian connections to September 11. I remember speaking to family of Aussies that were over there, that kind of thing. Those sort of stories that ran halfway through the bulletin. So and of course Ansett was then covered by other reporters with more experience than me, because they'd been able to shuffle people around. But friends, what I learned in those seconds, those moments, will stay with me for the rest of my life. That was such a defining chapter for me. And it does shape now how I show up with empathy and compassion for my clients when I coach them, the leaders, the business leaders who have had years of making it work as a media trained corporate spokesperson. They might be an economist with decades of experience, and yet they still, when they go to speak, they're kind of still a bit stuck on what's the real story here, and kind of just trying to stick to in a regulated environment. You do have to be careful what you say, and I understand that, but there's still ways to show up just as in a very human way, right? It doesn't